Good morning, R. Michael Fisher here, working with the imagination and the role of the imagination. Not magician per se, but imagination. Yeah, that's kind of the role I'm taking on lately, trying to explore how that might be an interesting approach to working with 3 to 5 year olds, for example, in the academy where I'm going to be doing some work this week. So I thought I would share this with the whole group, the whole world. Thank you very much. I'm glad always to share what I can about philosophy, education, the combinations of fear, combinations of aesthetics. That's a little bit about what I'm going to be exploring this morning. So let's zoom in and start with a demonstration of a principle. And then we'll start with some really simple materials, right? Of course, you can do this in your own home. Oh, by the way, that was a sacred snip, if you didn't recognize. Another sacred snip. Yes, so I've got 3 to 5 year olds I'm going in to work with today. You can see what I'm starting to do here. Close. This is called handwork. Really important for young people. Important for all humans, no doubt, in history, cultural history, anthropology. Handwork begins with taking something like that, taking a part of it and doing this. I kind of was trying to think of the most simple kind of basic handwork here this morning. This is an exercise I want to do with the 3 or 5 year olds when I go down on Thursday to their daycare center. And so, yeah, you can see we're getting from a beginning to an ending. And then next step in this demo is sacred rip. All right. So I'm going to reach into a big black bag, sit in front of the children when they get their attention even somewhat. And the demo starts with they can reach in and pull out one of these from the black bag. And then the process is, what are they going to do with it? Well, you can imagine, right? The first thing you want to do is you see this piece of tape or end it, and you start pulling. And then right about there, I'll stop. This really sacred moment. What's going on? Pedagogically, philosophically, psychologically, perhaps even mythologically. There's an encounter going on, that's for sure. So what I've done is pre-established, pre-positioned the nature of this piece of green string. I've put it, in presenting it to them as an encounter, in its form as bound up. Wound up, round up. Something's been done to the string that is obvious. Now, obviously things have been done to the string, which in the more older grades you could work with, what's string made of, how is it put into these braids so that we have something called string, how is it dyed green, colors, and why is it dyed green? So older grades, but when we go right down to the most basic, simple learning, and it's really foundational learning, not just simple, really important concepts that I'm starting to explore in coparticipation of potency. I also call it copotencity. And something like that. And anyways, what is being presented in the encounter is that somebody has already operated on this string in an obvious way when the child receives it at 3 to 5 years old. So something has already been done. They're receiving it now as this child, as some kind of gift, perhaps, or something interesting, other than just giving them a piece of string or letting them cut their own piece of string. That's another potential part of the process. But not in this case, my first connection with them. I want to connect with them through this copotencity of something potent has already been done to something that now they can undo. Get it? Something's been done, they get to undo. Something's been created, they get to deconstruct. That is, to me, foundational to copotencity for two human beings to interact. So I'm using this platform in this demonstration to begin a relationship. I'm going to be the imagician for them in the next 5 months in my artist residency in their program. They're going to see me come, do things, be with them, just do things not necessarily with them, and they can think about whether they want to join me. But the question I'm interested in, is right from day one in my meeting them, connecting with them, is how to create a copotencity between us. Okay, co-relationship. Okay, co-creative relationship. Call it what you want. But there's a sense of connection to attachment to copotencity. Yeah, attachment to co-creating, to the copotensity, the potency of our becoming some kind of encountering relationship ongoing for the next 5 months, and what that might mean. And of course, the rest of the members in their class, they're sitting around in their circle, probably on the floor, and they're going to start doing something with this that I've given them, that they've pulled from the black bag, and all of a sudden, they're going to get to that exciting moment of freedom. Saw that? Something was being freed in its latency of potential, now into, which you'll quickly see, starts to unwind into a different form. So now, I'd give them a few seconds to play with this, just to open it. They freed it. And so I'm really interested in the concept of, and I might bring it into the conversation, it'll depend how things go. As I hand this rolled up piece of string to them, now what does this need? That's your question of inquiry. 3 to 5-year-olds, no problem. What does it need? Then they start unwinding it, right? And then they get it to this point. And so we could answer that inquiry, and I may or may not ask them verbally, but most important is for them to embody the hands-on experience of freeing something, in a sense, meeting its need to be free. Well, who determined that? Well, it was determined by what was put into the string in this process, giving it to the children as a gift, and then them freeing and receiving the full potential of the string in a new form. So they get to co-participate in the copotensity of transformation of form in this simple little exercise. And remember, this is always in relationship to me, who offered them the bounded that they can unbound. I'm sort of suggesting here aesthetically, from the point of view of an artist, an aesthetic philosopher, thinker, and educator, that this very simple process of boundedness and unboundedness, in a way, is them taking something out of or away from Now, I'll get to that notion of the via negativa, that is, what is it you can take away from something to produce something? So they took away the tape. They took away the enclosure, and I actually am putting it in between two little pieces of plastic as well. And so they are freeing, right? They're taking away something to open up the possibilities for something more interesting. Boom. Number one, concept number one of this aesthetic development process I'm working with is how do we go from boring to something interesting? And I'm going to suggest that that little piece of string all bundled up and bound up, taped in plastic, when they take it out of the bag, it's pretty boring. I mean, there's certainly a little interesting, but it's going to be boring if it just sits there and put it there in their hand or on the floor. No, they're going to immediately, automatically, systematically go and start unwinding it. You see, this is what I'm tapping into, the, if you want to call it the inherent, the instinctive nature toward copotencity, how to participate in something creative happening. And my focus is on the negative side of the happening, the deconstruction side, right? The opening and releasing, the removing from, taking away from the evocative object, taking away this tape, right? To take away the boundedness. And that way they've actually just removed and taken away something from me because I put it into a form. Now they get to take away that, take away from what I did to them now co-potentiating this string, this new form. See how participative it is? See, in the unconscious connection it is to me and me presenting something bound. And now, folks, X, Y to Z, A, B, C, D, X to Z, you could create, put anything together bound, give it to a child, and let them go. Well, you know that. Just bring home some groceries from the store or a present, and it's wrapped and bound. What do they want to do? Do they need to do it? Do they need to undo this piece of material I'm giving you? No, I'm not asking them to do anything. I'm not saying they need to unravel it. I'm not saying they need to do anything with it. I'm just saying, go put your hand in the black bag, take out one of these objects, tape piece of string rolled up, and see what happens. I'm not saying they need to do anything, but there is a copotencity in it, in their observation of it. They're going to go, there's something in there. Who knows what thoughts might be going through? Oh, I want to free that. And one of the questions I'm going to say, what does it need when they take it? And one of the reasons I'm going to be playing with that in the long part in this video, I won't go into fine details, is I'm attempting to revision need theory, need motivations. For example, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The how so many people are talking about needs today in nonviolent communication, NVC training. Needs is the focus of that curriculum. Nonviolence in children, adults, everybody learning to recognize their needs because, supposedly and probably somewhat true, we're not maybe good at speaking what our needs are, right? Asking for what we want. So, well, I'm actually very interested in the children starting with, what does this piece of string want? What does that little package, that bounded package want? And you can see, I find that is more important in the holistic sense, so that the need isn't always focused on what I need, what me needs. Okay, and maybe what they need or you need, second person, but first person perspective, second person. I'm starting with the it perspective. What does it need? This evocative object. So cool. Beautiful, beautiful piece of green string. Nice shiny surface. Very interesting too. So they could start to observe it. And you can start to see my art class, my aesthetic classes, which is just supposed to be, that's why I'm coming in as an artist. It starts to look like science, right? This is like a science demo. Wow. the level of foundation, science, art, morals, religion, spirituality, whatever you want, those three big spheres, those are all connected very closely and are quite integrated in that sense. Older grades, you can start to differentiate those, right? Arts, sciences, morals. But at this point, they're all quite close. So when I ask what it needs, then the children are going to take the string out, and I'm just going to observe, and they're going to observe each other, and they're going to be modeling. There's going to be this whole field of co-participancy, copotencity of what they're going to do with it. So then I'm going to pose. I'll watch. We'll comment. See what happens. I don't know what's going to exactly happen. Never done this before. The teachers, of course, in the room as well are going to be watching all this and participating in some way. And then at some point, um, they may just play with the string. Play is important, right? Just start with play. They've unbound something bound, and then they'll probably play to a point. Depends how boring it is. And boring is going to be a concept in this. How do you move from boring to interesting? And I'm going to suggest that they've already started that in the moment that I gave them the package and the moment they started undoing the tape. That's a really important concept, moving from boring to interesting. And there's no negativity put on boring. It's just, I'm suggesting it's actually inherent to move from boring to interesting. It's like water moving from uphill to downhill. It's like gravity. So the movement then is from what? Boring to interesting to more interesting to, and so we'll be doing this. I might put it to them as, okay, well, how can you do something interesting with this string? Do something boring with the string. Do something interesting with the string. We can talk about it or demonstrate. We're just going to watch. It doesn't have to be totally systematic. 3 to 5 year olds, you're lucky to keep them together from a few minutes. We'll see what happens. And then I'm going to just keep moving with this curriculum notion, this philosophical notion, from boring to interesting to more interesting. And then I'm going to say, well, can you make it beautiful? Do they need to make it beautiful? No, I'm not saying they need to. I'm saying, can you? Is it interesting enough? The question I'm asking to move to the notion of more interesting, which is the move in toward beauty. That's the aesthetic teaching, right? That's the aesthetic development line of intelligence I'm working with the children in this whole curriculum of unfolding. And then from beauty, you might ask, well, what comes after beauty? And I go, well, sacred. So you see, I've set up a sequencing of curriculum development here, aesthetic line of development from boring to interesting to beauty to sacred. And then one could say, well, how do I make a form like this sacred into something sacred, a sacred act, a sacred engagement? Who knows how we define sacred? For kids, young kids this age, I might just say special. How do you make it special? After you've made something beautiful. And then, of course, the whole time they're comparing this, right? There's a relative comparison of what would be sacred, Maybe they tie it around their neck, or they do a friendship bracelet, or who knows? Maybe they tie it together with somebody else's and make something that they couldn't make on their own. I don't know. I'm going to leave all that up to open. We've got a couple hours together. So what I'm passing now is that the problem of needs is, what do you need to do with the string? If the string has needs, what does it need? I'm actually more interested in moving that from what the string needs and what you need to what actually is desire. Desire that's not already constructed, preconceived, pre-assumed to what might just be pure desire. The pursuit of beauty for the sake of beauty. Or as Keats might say, beauty for the sake of truth, because beauty is in truth, truth is in beauty. That's all We know, he says, and all we need to know in the poetic sensibility. The imagician playing with that poetic sensibility, as I'm doing in this entire demo, in my philosophizing around it. There's a certain poetics to it. There's a certain artistic, creative potensity, copotencity to it as I engage with you as well as a parent, as an adult, as perhaps a teacher. So see where I'm going and see the possibilities um, that we will perhaps be building a curriculum foundation here in the school program, this innovative academy, towards moving out of a needs-based way of thinking all the time, of deficit, and thinking of, yes, removing, like the tape, taking away, yes, but from something that's already pre-given. So we're not just taking something away, we're actually taking it to its next copotensity. And that to me is a gifting process. Oh, thanks. I give the gift, right, of the little wrapped up string. And then they take that gift and take it further. And then they may gift their string and give it away to somebody. And that becomes now a gift because somebody can tie it together and they make it long. They might make a one for the whole classroom, or the teacher helps them tie it together. And then they do something interesting with that, something beautiful with that. And then we could even take them to something sacred. So can you take me? Can you take this string? Take it. See, that's all part of take it. I'm gifting it. And so I start that in just this tiny little demo, this package. So if you think about that, I'll leave this now and we end this video, to this potential of copotensity that is not based on needs, but it's based on catalyzing the inherent movement, the drive to move from the boring to the interesting, to the beautiful, to the sacred. And, how many parents, how many teachers um, have the issue of kids who, I'm bored. Yeah, you see, that's part of what I'm playing with here, and a solution, an elegant solution, I think, in this very simple demonstration. And no doubt there's many more creative aspects to this inquiry. And the children are going to now learn that there actually is a direction of possibility of copotensity when they're given something bound or limited, and then they release the limitation and make something less limited. And then even this now is only 12 inches long or so. That's limited. And so then what can they do to extend that? So just imagine if we can begin this really deep patterned copotensity or morphic field. It's like a field of becoming at the aesthetic level of development so early in children, through just a simple kind of concepts, however we teach those. I'm not saying you even have to use these words with them. I don't know if we do or not. I'll probably use those words, but the idea and the embodiment is, the enactment is to move toward, and so they always see a potential to go beyond being boring or caught or trapped in the confinement of boring, which is a real experience for the organism, not just humans. Larger concept, larger conversation of what makes something boring, what makes something interesting, what makes something beautiful, what makes something sacred. And then how does that affect, right, us co-participating with the it of the world, the it perspective of the world, and what wants to unfold? What does this string want, is another way of putting it. What does it desire? All right. And of course, at some level, the children might be thinking, what does Merlin, that's my name as I work at this school. What does he want? Why is he giving us this package? What does he want? They may not be cognitively asking that question, but I would suggest to you the mirroring neurons, the entrainment of children mimicking adults in basic learning processes is so tapped into the subtleties of what are they doing, but what do they want, or what do they desire? What does Merlin desire when he gives us this package? Different than and distinguishing from, but related to, what does he need? What does that teacher need, right? What does that parent need? What does that sibling need? So this is what children are negotiating. Families are negotiating with each other. What do they need? What do they want? What do they desire? Well, I don't think we have a very good vocabulary, and we certainly don't have an aesthetic vocabulary, which is what I'm teaching here in this process of, bounding something, unbounding it, setting it free, and that begins, take something from me. So I've given you something to take something from me, and take it further. But all connected, right? It's always connected. Just as they're going to be connected to this string, right? Which represents this connection, the strings of attachment. So we can go right into attachment theory and the connection of, mother to child through the attachment of the umbilical cord, which you could even get really psychoanalytic and say maybe that's what this string represents. My desire is to attach to these children in some way, and the children to attach to me in some, individually and collectively as a group, because I'll be working with them off and on for 5 months. Okay, lots of things there to consider. Glad I could share this with you. Let's put comments in the bottom of the video, share it with people, etc. This is curriculum for everybody. Copotencity.